take one.
Wait, no, you gotta do it like this.
No, you gotta do the whole thing. Scene marker and action. That's how you gotta do it. That's how you gotta do it. So, alright.
Hello.
Hello. Alright, so this is, I think did we decide on it being called Truth Be Told?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so, again, start over. Alright. Hey, this is Truth Be Told. My name is Kaylee.
And I'm Sammy.
And what our channel is devoted to is answering the unasked questions. Either questions you're too afraid to ask or too afraid to know the answer to. I'm gonna cut it down real quick.
Preach.
Stop. I want it to go away, so. I guess we should start by, telling a bit about ourselves. Do you want to go first?
Let you go first.
Okay. I'm just going to do the bare basics. I'm 20 years old. I am a management student down at the University of Lafayette. I love dogs. I love video games. I am a full-fledged gamer. And my fun fact about me is I have an extra organ. It's a spleen.
And my name is Sammy. I am 19. Right now, I'm trying to get into college, and we'll see how that works out. And all my activities just include martial arts, Muay Thai, and Jiu-Jitsu, and that's about as much detail as you can get into.
You don't like coffee?
No.
That's your fun fact?
No. Yeah, I don't like coffee. I cannot drink coffee.
I just recently started liking coffee. So.
I cannot drink coffee.
So
doesn't matter if it's hot or cold. It tastes like
bitter.
No, it's like the burnt. You ever like smell something burnt?
Oh yeah.
Like it's something that burns.
I'm a cook.
That's how coffee tastes to me.
It reminds me a lot of like really burnt popcorn. That's the best way I could describe it.
Yep.
So, we are not gonna have this setting, hopefully.
All the time.
Not all the time. We may occasionally have it, because like right now the phone's propped really weird, but sorry. I'm sorry. But it's the best that we're gonna get for today. So, like I said, Truth Be Told is devoted to answering the questions that people are too scared to ask, or maybe just too afraid to look for the answer. So starting off, we want to say that this is going to be a real talk. It's not going to be scripted. It's not going to be we plan this out weeks in advance and then finally get to it. It's we sit down and we talk. I mean, yeah, we'll pick a topic, but I mean, I don't plan us on having a month to speak about a particular subject, write a whole script, show like flashing and statistics. No, it's real talk with real people.
Yep.
So, do you want to start us off with what our subject's going to be about today?
Yeah, so what we've been talking about and what's been on our minds lately is how do you define like a real friend? A lot of people, you hear that a lot with people. A lot of people claim to be friends. They may even think that they're friends, but at the end of the day, they barely know the person. And we grow up in the Bible Belt, where you go to, and you go to you have like 20 churches on the same street, and everybody knows everybody, and they'll all call you your friend, but the most you get out of that is, hey, how are you?
How you doing today?
And then that's it. So
that's something that we often, I guess, what's a good way to describe it? We often take advantage of the word friend. I mean, Sammy here I consider a friend, and we've known each other for how many years now?
Almost 5.
Yeah, almost 5 years. So,
so that's almost half a decade.
Imagine me, I'm 2 decades old. Like, Imagine how old that makes me feel.
I'm almost there.
I know, age, years. But growing up, before I met Sammy, I had 2 people I considered friends, and they were so close I considered them brothers. And up till recently did I, lose those friends. So I don't think I had like that many actual friends anymore. Yeah, I had like people I was acquainted with, the person I would sit next to class, occasionally talk to. But to me, I consider a friend being someone that if you were to run, this is a weird example, but it's how I see it. If I were to run into you in public, I would try to sit there and have like a conversation with you.
And catch up.
Yeah, catch up. Ask how you've been. Like that's what I consider a friend. I don't want to, a friend for me is someone that I don't want to have to go 3 aisles down to avoid. It's someone I want to actually communicate with.
You want to talk for like, say as minimum words as possible.
Yeah, enough to get by and rush along.
And not to sound polite.
Yeah. But like going on with that, like, what do you think is like actual qualities of a good friend or a real friend?
For me, the biggest, a lot of them is, some people may not like this, but the Bible does say, love each other in, not just in word, but also in deed. And I think that's the best quality of a friend, and that's how you know a real friend from just a well-known acquaintance almost.
And like in us doing this is, I guess, a way for us to show our deed. Is we've been talking about setting this up for a couple months now.
I think 2 months.
Yeah, about 2 months. And we tried to get another, I guess I would call him an acquaintance now because of him kind of reacting so negatively to it. But I mean, me and you, we're taking our time with this not just because it's something that we want to do, but we hope in a way it's going to like help people.
Yep.
So
helps whoever watches it.
Yeah, whoever watches this, like that is what our goal is we aren't looking for the 8 million subscribers or 8 million views per video. We're not PewDiePie. We're not T-Series.
I honestly don't even know what T-Series is.
I just recently figured out what it was. I knew that there was a competition between the two, but I actually had no clue what it was until like 3 days ago.
I saw all the memes, but I had no idea what that was.
But ours is, we could honestly reach out to one person. But us knowing that we reached out to that one person is better than having so many views per video. And that was part of our fear with starting this was, we may end up like shutting it down, but knowing that we could at least reach out to one person, I mean, I'd say that we accomplished our goal.
Yep.
So, sorry, we like kind of ran off there.
And again, we're not here to, honestly, we're not even here to give you all the answers because we don't even have them ourselves. We're half college students. So I mean, we don't really have all the answers ourselves, but
we have like small solutions of what we've noticed works.
Yep.
And there's some people who are still trying to find those solutions.
And even then, what I've experienced is that even if you don't have the answer, knowing someone else is going through the same thing you're going through is enough to keep going. And sometimes you don't just need the right solution, you just need that extra boost to just keep going.
And like that's what most certainly I would look for in a friend is someone who, whenever I'm stuck between a rock and hard place, they're there to give me that extra push out the door.
Yep.
Especially like with me, I deal with anxiety and depression. And so I love it whenever, like, it's not even planned, but you'll send me a message and be like, hey, do you want to hang out? Like, I have all this free time, and I'm like, yeah, I really need to get out of the house. Or like with my boyfriend Cody, he's the same way too. It's like, y'all somehow manage to know whenever I need somebody, and I don't have to reach out to ask for help. It's already there to give.
Yep.
And that's like along with like the lines of me wanting someone that loyal. To me, having loyalty in a friendship means way more than anything else.
Yep.
I want someone to be there for me for the thick and the thin, especially with like my health problems.
Yep.
I need someone through that. And like you guys are there for me. Oh gosh, that voice crack. Let's just ignore that voice crack. Edit that out later.
Hey, that's really bad when you're a salesman and like you're supposed to be this guiding hand through a process.
I would rather
your
take
voice-
a voice crack than a stutter, though.
And your voice goes.
Although,
and
just
then-
saying, I'd rather take a voice crack than a stutter.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing that I'm working on. It's not stuttering.
Yep. And one thing too in a friend is that, in fact, I just thought about this myself, is that whenever Jesus actually gives an anomaly on basically what a friend does, he actually lists all the things that someone does and all the things that someone doesn't, and all of them are actions. He goes, he talks about separating people. He goes, the ones that get rewards is the one who is, you fed me when I was hungry. You
Clothed me when I was naked.
you visited me when I was sick and in prison. And I think there's one more that I can't remember. And he goes back to the people who
didn't.
yeah, and he goes, you didn't do you didn't
You didn't
feed
do
me.
this. You didn't do that. You didn't do this.
And a lot of it, it's not necessarily if you did. And this is gonna sound really weird, but the way I kind of envision how I know I'm actually being genuine with somebody is if I didn't have any way to necessarily communicate with you, if I couldn't speak, I couldn't write, how would I communicate that I cared about you? It would have to be through my
Actions.
yeah. And it doesn't have to be I give stuff all the time, but I'm there, I'm giving my time, if anything.
And that's something, like, for me, I would consider, like, my big love language. I am a person who is touchy-feely. Like me, like, bumping you and all of that. Like, I'm a person who, on first meeting, I'm going to give you a hug. I'm not going to give you a handshake. Because I feel like a hug is more personal. Spending quality time with someone is another thing that I feel like is something that we kind of neglect.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, phone conversations and text messaging, yeah, that's okay, but actually getting to sit down with someone,
Yeah.
like face to face, like whenever we're drinking bad coffee at a coffee shop, and we get to sit there and we actually get to crack jokes.
Yep.
Like, that's what I would consider doing with a friend,
Mm-hmm.
not like video chatting.
Yeah. And even then, there are some times where that's not a bad thing either, is because especially down here in the South, where there's almost a borderline anti-technology vibe you can slightly feel. There's nothing wrong. I think it actually helps sometimes. Just when you know someone's busy or you're busy, sending a text.
And like going along with like what I said, it's like I love it whenever I don't even have to send anything, and like somehow you guys know, and you're just like, hey, I'm thinking of you today. That means like amazing. Like if I'm having a bad day at work and I see something like that instantly makes my day feel better. And that's definitely something I would hope a friend would do.
And those don't take any more than like 2 seconds.
Yeah, 2 seconds. Even if it's like sending a silly picture or just an emoji.
Tagging each other in memes.
Memes,
That's
yes.
the true.
That's the true
test of
friendship.
friendship.
And it also depends on the meme. Like the quality of the meme
quality of the
sets
meme.
the quality of the friendship. Like with me, like anything to do with like SpongeBob. SpongeBob or sloths. Like that's my
have one to
go-to.
show you later.
And like going along with like you don't have to give like gifts, although I will say, and I'll call you out on this, my awesome sloth backpack is probably my favorite gift I've ever gotten in my 20 years of living. Maybe because my obsession with sloths is so peculiar, and people think I'm kidding when I say I want sloth related things. This guy actually got me a sloth backpack. And I'm so sad that one of the straps is broken and it's getting fixed right now. Because I carry that thing around with me to work. I carry it around me in the mall, whether I'm going out to eat. Because I don't care. I love it, and it's something that a friend gave me, and I'm going to show it off. I flip it around sometimes to make it look like it's hugging me. And I am, because I'm showing it off, because it's something that I really, really appreciate.
And that's actually a good segue into the next thing that made me think about is knowing if you are the friend, and I'm going to chase a rabbit for a split second, but at the end of the day, you can't, this may sound like something out of something really cheesy or something somebody doesn't want to hear, but you can't change anybody but yourself. So if you feel, if like I've heard this quote somewhere. It's like, if there's not a good person in the world, be the good person. That's, at the end of the day, that's as cheesy as it is and as Facebooky as a quote that is. That's not necessarily untrue. If there's not a light, you can light your own candle. But if you're the person and you're wanting to reach out to somebody, knowing what somebody needs is really important. Because we always say it's like, it's not the gift, but the thought that counts. Well, if you put thought into it, you know.
Then you put thought into it. You know, the fact that I would adopt a sloth in a heartbeat and raise it as my own child, that you actually got me a sloth.
And at least, because we're gonna rant about the South quite a bit here.
we are very much Southern. I mean, we are the boot state. I mean, granted, most people say that, you know, we're not too terribly South. I mean, we have Duck Commander. Outside my house is either a cotton field or a cornfield. Like, it either
depends on which store you go out of.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're the mall that actually has a camo store, and it's probably the biggest store in the entire mall. But it is. It has hunting supplies. It has camo. I'm really just jumping off the wagon here. Like, we're supposed to be talking about friendship, and I'm over here talking about like the store in the mall.
You remember that trend everyone was doing back in the day where they had that weird, I think it was a Browning jacket. It had the camo right across the top here.
We're not going to talk about that. That's a trend that died, and it's going to try to stay dead. I have family that wants to revive it. No, it's going to stay buried in its coffin.
Right now it's
12 feet under.
Right now it's
not even 6 feet.
Yeti cups and jacked up trucks.
Okay, I will say Yeti cups are actually pretty good, because at the end of the day, when I need ice, it keeps my ice. So, again, going back to his original point, because
I actually forgot what that was.
You're saying like the only person you can change is yourself, and at the same time, like, bouncing a little off of it, don't feel like you do have to change you yourself just to appease somebody else.
Yeah.
Because however, how I'm acting here and I'm acting with you and in front of the camera is how I'm going to act to the next person that walks through the door. If you can't take me from me, then obviously you can't be my friend. Because I like who I am. This is me. This is who I intend to be. I just turned into a poet and I didn't know it. But
I'm sorry.
I'm going to have to play back the video for you to see it later. But I would hope that, you know, someone who I find is a true friend wouldn't want me to change anything about myself. I mean, maybe like joking, saying like, hey, you should get your hair cut or something. Obviously, if like your hair is like all up here.
And that's a good point too, because when someone says, don't change for someone else, if you're a jerk, if you're just malicious and mean, that's a different subject.
That's a different subject. Like, if you're someone who would be considered like a school bully, like...
change
change that. Change that, because unless you find someone who is exactly like you, then you may want to change it.
And quite frankly, no one's
like that. Except for another bully, maybe in another parish. For those of you, if we have any northerners up there, you should know. Your counties are our parishes.
By the way.
By the way. Louisiana is the only state to have parishes and not counties. And honestly, it's ridiculous.
For whatever reason.
South's the reason. But bouncing back to our original
like
topic.
For example, if you're like someone who is into something like, I don't know, D&D, or if you're like really into anime, like there's nothing wrong with that. Or if you're into, or if you're into football, there's no reason those two things can't. Or someone who is really into cars is talking to someone who is really into, I don't know. What's something to be compared? Really into golf. I don't know, golf. Let's just take those.
Using golf?
I don't know.
I was thinking you're about to go like complete bipolar. It's like someone who's into cars and someone who's into like, I don't know, clothes. I thought you were going to go like completely bipolar.
That too.
No, but that's still bipolar. I mean,
Um,
cars and golf, where do you get that from?
But I mean, there's no reason that you should feel weirded out. There's not one that's.
There's no reason why
Want to
you
be-
two still couldn't hang out,
Yeah.
even if your interests were different. I mean, like
You may
yours-
not know what the heck the other person's talking about.
I mean, granted, like we have a common interest. I do Taekwondo. He does Muay Thai. Martial arts is our common interest, and as well as going to church is our common interest.
Mm-hmm.
But like in my free time, I'm gonna be sitting behind a game controller, or my face is gonna be dove down into a book. Or like Sammy, I mean, most of your time, I mean, you spend pretty much majority of your time training.
Yep.
As much as I love my martial arts, I don't spend every waking hour doing
Yeah.
it.
And I'm the exact opposite. I am training. I'm either training, looking up things for better training, or
Working out.
yeah, or doing those things said in video of said training.
I mean, and I'm over here like the lazy sloth I aspire to be. But at the same time, like, even though we have our differences, I mean, we're still friends.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I consider you a best friend. But now, hold on. Like, this isn't something that's related to the video. What is your opinion on pickles?
Oh, but it's- I've heard this before, but I don't remember what to say about it. But pickles are an abomination. They, no.
And I guess that's another thing that puts us apart, because I would scarf down a jar of pickles in a heartbeat. So, like, that's again proving that even though, you know, we are different, in some aspects we are the same. And in going to find a friend's not just gonna bump into you on the street.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be actively searching for one.
Yeah.
And at the time, whenever I was actively searching for a friend, I was also joining the church.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I got to meet this guy right here. We actually, the day I met him, we were on our way to a retreat with our youth. And it also ended up being his birthday that day.
That
And
was awkward.
it kind of was awkward.
That got awkward fast.
I still have the recording of that. And we were finishing up our sermon for that night, and they pulled you to the front
Yeah.
with a cupcake, and we had
Well, they didn't bring it down yet. They like one of the older women in that church like slowly walked down with it, like just slowly as she could.
like
Just
slow, like movie slow mo.
Yeah, like well, that's how it felt to me because I was like,
I mean, we're gonna have to check the video. I have that video.
it felt slow to me.
So, but at the same time, it was cool because that day I made a friend, and we won the game of tug of war.
Yep.
So
And I was gonna say something. What was I gonna say?
like, even though that didn't sound like a point, it was a point because we were being funny and friendly, and that was what the main point is supposed to be. Is you can't close yourself off if you're looking for a friend. You need to be vulnerable in a way. You need to open yourself up to the ability to reach out.
And a lot of people, I've noticed this, and I've done this myself, and it's been a hard thing, but whenever you're hurt by somebody in a certain area, generally I mean, some people are easier than others. Sometimes they can take it the first time, but over time, as they start to see those patterns of hurt and what feels like betrayal, they just start to close off all the doors, and
you can't do that.
yeah, what ends up happening, you just become bitter and lonely. And that's not to say that we don't empathize. I mean, we both have been in
Bad situations.
Yeah, and
we've been through the gutter. We've dug out from the mud, and yeah, even now things aren't water clear with us. We're still trying to climb out of the molasses. I'm trying to think of like all the analogies for like, you know, rough and hard and stuck. Especially now with me being like a struggling college student. I am very much digging myself out of like a pool of molasses between balancing student loans, trying to do part-time / full-time job, having a normal sleep schedule and eating. That's something that people
While working like a second job responsibility up here.
Where like my main job is I'm teaching 2-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because starting there, and part of like why I wanted to do this is I want to help create better people.
Mm-hmm.
Saying create, I'm trying to conform. What's a good word to say without making it sound
Be the light.
Yeah, be the light. And that's my main verse is, whoa, that was weird. That was a weird sound coming from inside of me. I know, aliens can just like bust out my chest at any second now. Oh no, that's still going in the video. I'm leaving that. Just us going.
I just know that's the opening of the video.
But like my main verse is Matthew 5:16 is let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. And I love it so much I even got a light bulb tattooed on me. But it is something that is true. And you even emphasized it earlier is like if there's not a light on, then light a match and light it.
And sometimes a lot of people do need that to make a difference. It's like some people they don't. For example, some people when they just don't have hope, they'll notice just a string of just bad choices and just continual self-destruction. But when they see someone who they grew up with, or when they is part of their own family, and they see them succeed, or they see them go through a hard time or a time of tribulation, in case you don't know what that is, because that is a big fancy word. It's just meaning a time of hardship and
Sammy busting out them
trial.
big words.
Yeah, I bust out big words every now and then. You gotta watch out for it.
I mean, biggest word I bust out is supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, because even just the sound of it, something quite
If you add any definition you want to that, is a adjective to describe all.
Exactly. And you are supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
That could be both insult and compliment.
Oh no, it was so meant to be a compliment, and you know it.
And what was I talking about? Oh yeah. So when they see someone go through that hard time, it gives them hope. And actually, I almost choked. One of my favorite verses, I think. I'm not a big verse memorizer. I just memorize what's actually said.
You know what the word says.
Yeah, I know what the
finding it.
Yeah, you could like Google the words and find it, but it's I think it's John 16:33, I think. But it's what Jesus says. He's pretty much, and this is what I like about it too, is because this is right before he ascends into heaven and everything. But he talks about going into the world, loving each other. But then he just goes off. And that's what I like about it, because I don't like verse. I'm gonna go off the rail again. I don't like verses because it takes away the context a lot of time. For example, people will be like, "Oh, this," like for example, every college student, every female college student, when they were given their
Bibles.
Yeah.
For our church at least held like a graduation ceremony. Where whenever you would transition from a senior in high school to a freshman in college, they would give you a Bible.
And the verse is, I don't even remember the verse, but it's trust in the Lord with all
your heart.
Yeah, and
it's
plans to
something,
harm you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you.
I know something in Galatians
give you a hope and a future, and that's actually a very misleading verse, because that's actually right before the Israelites are actually about to become slaves. So it can be both a good thing and a bad thing.
Depending on the context of which it's used. And what's bad is, like, I read the Bible, but, I know what the verse you're talking about. I know it's in Galatians because...
Is it in Galatians?
It is in Galatians because for a senior gift, one of the head members of the church actually gave everyone blankets that had that particular verse on it. And so I have that verse engraved on a blanket, stitched on a blanket. And yeah, I haven't used it since she gave it to me. And it all depends. Like, obviously, there are a couple that they have like just straight meanings. Where like mine was a straight meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Go forward, do good, and people will do good after you.
Yep. And that's what I like about this one so much is because it is off the rails. So it's like you get a topic and then you get that little like mark just to, hey, by the way, this too. Is because, and what
subcontext where it, like in a textbook where you have a mark and it brings you all the way down to the bottom.
Yep.
And they say, this is this.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what he says is, in this world, you will have trials and tribulations. But be of good. There's some verses that say, "Do not be afraid," or "Be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world." And pretty much what he's saying there, in case you guys don't really know a whole lot about Jesus, or and if you don't believe in God or everything, we're not trying to force that on you.
No. Don't think that we're doing that. We just are people who've grown up in a church or had a long church life. So, I mean, we don't mean to just hound you with verses. That's not what we're intending to do. We're not trying to convert you to being Christians through this. If you want that, then go watch a Joel Osteen video.
Billy Graham.
Yeah.
But it is what's been our root. I can personally say for myself, if I hadn't had that verse and read what I have about what's actually in the Bible, granted, not listening to what the pastor says or what the preacher on TV. Huh?
Did you make a ring out of that?
I did. What the preacher on TV who's being paid like $6 million to say that on TV, that's not who we're talking about. What we're talking about is what it actually says. Because we'll rant and rave about what we think about the modern day church in America.
That's another video for another time.
That's a whole
nother video. That'll take a lot of editing to do.
And but it's what's actually in the Bible is what gives us hope, and it's what is the root, I guess is the best way to say, because
it's our foundation for who we are. And
if we didn't have that in our lives, I can honestly say I probably wouldn't be doing this right now, and we probably wouldn't
even become friends then.
I personally probably wouldn't be either I probably wouldn't be alive right now, or I'd be in jail. And that's not, I know a lot of people say that as a literal exaggeration, but I was messed up mentally for a long time and struggle with a lot of different things.
I know, probably people are gonna start asking,
what is
what you talking about? And I promise, what we say, and eventually we will tell our story. It may end up being in the next couple ones where we'll actually sit down individually. It'll just be either me or Sammy, and we're gonna tell you our story. Because we want this to be very open. We want you to feel like that this is a safe environment in which you can be you and we can be us. And I'm taking away your time right now. Part of what we also decided to do was we decided to actually let whoever watches reach out. If there is something in particular that you've gone through, and there is a chance that we've gone through it too, we have an email that we set up, and it's completely anonymous. You don't know who's going to read it. It's either going to be me or him. Other than that, it's going to be anyone else, but you don't know whose eyes it's going to be. But we will make sure that we can actually help and reach out to your question without calling you out, and we're going to help you find your answer. Whether it's through theories, or if it's with a solution that we found ourselves.
Yeah. Or if it's just a coping mechanism, or what's written in the Bible, because at the end of the day, that is our cornerstone again. There's a lot of truth to be found that most people aren't aware of. And it's not going to come from a place of judgment or criticism or...
who are we to judge?
Yeah.
We know what we've been through. and soon you guys are gonna know what we've been through. And you're safe here. We're not gonna judge you.
Yeah, we're not gonna talk down to you like, yeah, you messed up, or you're not doing what
what we've said. We're not doing what we're doing.
The correct orderly thing to do. No, we're not like that.
Oh God, you just reminded me of somebody. I'm not gonna mention their name on camera, but you reminded me of someone. I think you know exactly who I'm talking about, though.
But we're not gonna be like that. We understand what it's like to struggle and what it's like to
be human.
Yeah.
And so you're on the same level as us. And like I'm gonna keep on repeating, and I'm gonna keep on repeating it in every single episode that we do if we continue this on. We're here to be your friend. We're here to help you. We're not doing this to benefit us. Because, I mean, we've done our share just going out and just simply talking to people. I've kind of done it anonymously for about a year now. I joined a helping app called Wisdo, and I've shared my story with other people, and I've actually gotten the opportunity to become an ambassador. So I actually get to reach out and help people with their problems because they're going through the same similar things I am. And that's where my satisfaction comes in, knowing that I've at least helped somebody, whether it's giving them either a coping mechanism, a solution, or just enough to get by. And that's where our satisfaction for this is going to come into play. Is there anything else you would like to add on to this topic? Because I think we covered everything that we had. We did pre-plan a little, just because we were nervous about this being our very first one.
Before we got too crazy off the rail.
Yeah.
I think we missed on one thing that I feel is very important, is that if you're a friend who was hurt, or if you're hurt in a relationship in any way, it could be a romantic relationship, a parent relationship,
just a simple friend relationship.
I feel like if you felt you were in the wrong, if you felt you were wronged, because I think we need to start there, is that if you felt you were wronged, I think if it's because the Bible says to, if at all possible by your choice, live in peace with other people. So I feel holding it against them or holding a grudge to the point you want to get back at them is not going to help.
That's not the way to go.
Because it's going to do nothing but, and I've struggled with that. I mean, when I feel hurt, and I get really bad about this when I already know that they're probably not going to listen to me. So I just don't even care, and I just rip into it, you know? Sometimes if I do feel like they will listen, I'll calm down, but whenever I know there's probably no point in talking, I get mean.
you go for the gutter.
Yeah, because, you know, what else?
Critical hits.
Well, yeah. Body shots.
Super effective.
Because I just don't see another point to it.
Major Pokemon references.
It's okay, we all do.
We all make Pokemon references?
Yes.
It's not just me? Okay.
And it's either Pokemon or The Office references. That's about as far as we've gotten. And
at least today.
And but holding on to it and not trying.
If you don't try to reconcile
that's
what has happened, then you may end up losing a friend.
Yeah.
Now, and we're not saying that even if they were in the wrong, you should go up and apologize. Because I'll be honest, if someone has wronged me and it has happened before, I know I would at least accept an apology, or would like to accept an apology or have one. But that's again where like communication is a giant key. Like knowing where you've gone wrong and whether saying you're going to fix it or you're just going to leave it at that. Because I've lost people who now I would like to try to start over and have friendships with, but in a way they've made it entirely impossible.
Yeah.
And that's where we're saying, like, you know, we're human. We're not gonna be perfect BFFs. I mean, there are some days with this one I just want to kick him upside the head. Probably the same with me because I ramble on too much. But at the end of the day, we know that we mess up. But how you handle the situation after that, whether you choose to understand and reconcile, or you just belittle and beat down, will determine whether or not you can continue. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, like you said, 5 years later, I mean, we've definitely reconciled and understood. And here we are.
Now, and two, and those are for things that, whenever they do admit that they're wrong. Now, there are some situations where, obviously this does not apply, what I'm about to say does not apply to if they forgot to, I don't know, hang out or text you or whatever. This does not apply to that. But if they deliberately wronged you, or if they...
Such as a way of like, you know, they went behind your back on something.
Or
if they've spoken about something that you've hoped would keep in confidentiality.
Or they stabbed you in the back, or slandered you is what I'm trying to think of. That's very common these days. Those are things that if you can reconcile, it would be best. And the reason why I say it would be best is because sometimes, like I said, if at all possible, by you to live in peace, that would be the best option.
Because you don't want to have the guilt of,
what
could I have done differently to stop this?
And if they're willing to admit that they're wrong, and you guys can move on and reconcile, that's a good thing, and I believe in what the Bible shows that that is the answer to it. Now, it does also talk about people who refuse to do that. They call them
those who trespass against us.
And the false brothers. Those are the ones you got to look out for, definitely, because they're described as a lot of things. And the Bible even tells you don't have anything to do with those people. If they're going to hurt you and you know it, and they're not going to feel any remorse for it, it's best to just stay away. Now, if they're talking from a Christian biblical standpoint, if they need something and I know it, give it to them, but that doesn't mean you stay in contact long enough for them to hurt you. Because at the end of the day, they're going to do that. Jesus actually describes certain people like that as a wolf in sheep's clothing, and there's actually a huge amount of symbolism behind that, and I'll kind of give a brief version of that, but basically what a wolf does when he's in a sheep pen. And I grew up on a little bit of a farm. I had sheep and goats, so I know a little bit about it. Now, we had a couple dogs.
Down here, we don't worry about wolves, we worry about coyotes. But I guess close enough. Might as well. We have some relation.
Well, I learned this whenever I was actually, my grandfather and I, we had we kind of started to raise a dog together. And I even had a dog, and I would bring him over to play with his. And we noticed something whenever we would be out there with them. They would chase, it's not sheep, it was actually the chickens, because the dogs weren't big enough to chase the goats. Yeah, they weren't big enough to chase them. So what they do is they would chase them and chase them and chase them until they pretty much died of a heart attack because they didn't have any, they were so exhausted. And they would just run off to the next chicken and do it again.
So, okay, so you're saying the dogs died of
exhaustion.
exhaustion.
The chicken
would die of.
Yeah, the chicken would die of, and that's what.
Probably gonna see my eyes got really wide at that moment.
What? Not the doggo.
The puppo.
Yeah, but and I actually looked it up too, and that's what wolves would do with. That's actually why. Go back in U.S. history. I'm not saying this was right, but this is what happened.
It's what's written in history.
Yeah. Why wolves were considered such a nuisance in America, and that's why they were exterminated, is because they would actually bite the heels of the sheep and get them to run and run and run.
Until they basically bled out.
Yeah, until their heart exploded on them. And wolves have amazing stamina, so they would just do that over and over and over again and they would clean half of a herd out in a couple hours. And that's pretty much what Jesus describes someone as a wolf in sheep's clothing. They may look like a sheep, and what a sheep is, they're docile and they're friendly, and there's no
there's no harm.
Yeah.
There's no way that they could harm you, but then...
And they don't choose to. They're very mellow creatures. The hardest part about a sheep is when they're scared. That's the hardest part when you're dealing with them. And, you know, they can look like a sheep. They can even sound like a sheep, but their behavior is not sheepish.
And like a couple more examples to go off of that. One's biblical and one's actually Disney. Don't hate me for that.
Hey.
One will be a Disney one, but the biblical one is one that I try to look for whenever I'm looking for new friends is whitewashed tombs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna sound kind of eerie. Whitewashed tombs are meant to be inserts Mission Impossible song. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, jumping back. I am jumping off this train too many times. I'm like bruised up from jumping off this train too many times. But the Bible says, you hypocrites. I'm not gonna be able to spout the whole verse verbatim.
Oh, he goes on a
rant. I will say, Jesus knows how to rant.
And he does.
And he says, you're like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but on the inside you hold decaying corpses and bones and smell rotten. And some people, they do that, and that's what we're saying. You shouldn't have to change yourself, or you shouldn't have to put on a front. You shouldn't have to put on a mask to hide who you really are.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not calling you decaying bodies.
Yeah,
Obviously,
you're not the
doing
hypocrites.
that. No.
The hypocrites were the people who were taking advantage of the people who were hurting. And were actually the ones who were causing the issues.
Mm-hmm.
Not,
and they were people that they looked up to.
Yeah, and that was what made it so dangerous.
And like in regards to the Disney one, and this is a very big Disney theory, Frozen.
Mm-hmm.
Our main character Anna runs into Prince Hans,
Mm-hmm.
and whenever she meets him, he is, oh my gosh, he's the first person she's met. She instantly falls in. There's so much wrong with Disney movies. That is another rant for another day. But I'm gonna make one of those. Is a rant about
what's wrong with Disney.
Yeah, what's wrong with Disney? Da, 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 da. Oh yeah, it's wrong. It's actually this one. Da, 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 da. But
I prefer the Mickey Mouse on the tugboat.
Oh yeah. Oh, I can't
whistle.
But the theory of, you know, his real self comes out whenever he took his gloves off and actually destroyed the fire by pouring water on it, making it to where Anna would suffer. That's like a Disney reference that I would relate that to. And I think it's something that, you know, not coming from a biblical standpoint, at least everyone by now has seen Frozen and knows that scene. If not, you know the theory and you know the meme. And because I think memes get out better than news now. And that's something that's
Memes
easily...
Memes
spread better than news.
Memes spread more real news than
news.
The actual news.
But that's something I think could easily relate it to is you shouldn't be someone who's different whenever the gloves come off.
Yep.
You should be the same nonetheless.
Yep. And I'm actually going to take that same point and go back to...
Are you going to take my Disney point?
Forget us. Huh?
Are you going to take my Disney point? Oh
Yep,
my
I am.
gosh.
So, hypothetically, if that same scenario happened, and I'm actually going to take a Dragon Ball reference, too, because this
If
is
you have
actually...
not noticed, we are nerds. But we are proud of it.
Like, my sister, she vapes, so... She actually found a vape that is actually like,
Isn't it a Dragon Ball?
No, I
That'd
wish.
be so cool.
I wish, but no. It was actually a Lord of the Rings one. It's, in case you don't know what it is, it's a meat pod. And it's written in Elvish. Wrapped around it says, one vape to rule them all. So...
That is so epic.
We geeked out for like a good 20 minutes about that.
That's too bad I don't vape. Otherwise, who knows? I may just go get that
just to own it.
Not even vape, because I gotta watch. Because I do have cousins that vape, and so they would so use it and not get the reference.
And
Mortals.
But let's take that same scenario with. I said I was gonna make a Dragon Ball reference. I don't know if I can or not anymore. Because of where I'm about to go. But hypothetically, if we're going to use Anna as the victim of the scenario, and let's just say that she had Hans, I don't know. He actually went.
But what was a good guy and not the bad guy?
Yeah, or got something wrong, or he heard something, so he was trying to. Obviously, Disney kind of ruined that with the whole no one cares about you statement that he makes.
Anna, if only somebody loved you.
Yeah, that kind of ruined that, but
okay.
But hypothetically speaking, if he didn't say that.
I love how to make sure it actually caught me like talking on camera.
And hypothetically, if he didn't say that, and he said, "Oh, I thought you were the bad guy."
Thought you were bewitched, like.
Yes, or something like that.
And that was like the main thing. Everyone was scared of Elsa because they thought she was a witch.
And he apologized and he did what he could to make amends. If you were in Anna's case, the best course of action, not saying it's the only one, but the best course of action would be to make amends and to reconcile. Now, even if he said all those things and he did all those things, but he still, like, at some point, like 2 years down the line, like, had like this huge change of heart, and he was like, "I am sorry, I did you wrong, da 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 da."
I bet he did that while he was in prison, because
There's a sequel, so we'll find out.
Yeah.
But hypothetically, if he did say that, then the best course of action was again to reconcile. Maybe not marry the dude, maybe not get that close to him again, but definitely to reconcile a little bit. It's and it may take years to get back to, if you were someone who was hurt, it may take years to get back into a good relationship with them.
Kind of think of like going along with the Disney one. I can't believe I'm coming up with this. Pocahontas. It's not so much historically accurate, but you do see this.
Yes, not historically accurate at all.
Way not historically accurate. But again, another subject for another day. If you think about it, in the movie, Pocahontas' father, the chief, tries to keep her away from the white men and thought they were so evil. And, I mean, granted, one did injure her, I guess, betrothed, because it wasn't really fiance. But whenever John Smith actually jumped out to save him, he realized he was wrong, and he did reconcile.
Yep.
I mean, his daughter got to go to the new world and kind of became part of their people.
And thinking about this too, I'm going to use a biblical one now, and I'm actually going to use my Dragon Ball one, because I really want to use that one. Even if it doesn't actually make sense in the end, I would still want to say it. But it's actually the relationship between Goku and Vegeta. Vegeta! What does this scouter say about his power level?
Okay, back on the subject. We gotta leave soon. I mean, we're topping at 53 minutes right now.
But anyway, it takes years. Like, Vegeta started off as a murderous tyrant. Now, I'm not saying that someone who wronged you is a murderous tyrant, but hypothetically. Hopefully not. If you're in that situation,
get out.
Yeah. But he was a jerk. He was self-centered, and he really tried to wrong everybody he was around. But Goku decided to be different. He decided to show mercy. He decided to be the light in that instance. And that's why I really like the original English dub and not the
Abridged.
Yeah, well, not just the abridged, but also the new version or the Japanese version.
Oh, yeah, no.
Because it shows because I like Goku's Superman character better rather than the new one. But and over the course of time, and I mean, Goku's 25. I'm a nerd enough to know how old Goku is right now. He was about 23, 24 when that happened, and by the end of the new Dragon Ball, he's 43. And so, just to give you that time slot, just to give you that time slot, it took all that time for Vegeta to actually go from self-centered and prideful and all about himself to being someone who is very selfless. Now, not to say you need to stay in a relationship like that, because they didn't have a relationship. They weren't
at all at the beginning.
No, they weren't friends at all. the only bit of relationship they had is that Goku just showed mercy and they had a common enemy. But over time, you saw that change him. And I'm actually going to use the biblical one, is actually Joseph. And Joseph and Saul, I'll use Joseph and David, I'll use those two. Joseph, in case you guys don't know the story, I'll give you a brief summary on it. Joseph was essentially the family favorite. He, whether he was the favorite because he was actually the favorite because he was the last born of the woman who, no, he was the firstborn.
No, he was the last born.
The last born? Okay.
You're talking about coat of many colors, right?
Yep. Yeah. He was the last born. He was the last.
He was the youngest, and so his older brothers were very envious of him. So much so that they staged his death.
Mm-hmm. They were actually planning to, and the reason why he was the favorite is because he was the last daughter of the woman who.
Last daughter, last son.
The last son of the woman who Jacob loved. Actually loved. That's a whole other backstory on that. But
I think we should have a biblical episode.
Yeah. That he loved, so he favored Joseph out of all of them. So long story short, because of that, or mainly because of that, Jacob saw such a favor on him, and he was the family baby. He was the baby, and he was the favorite. So
Joseph, he gave him a coat of many colors
and that
to
was,
show his favorism.
And back then,
I mean, if any of you guys have siblings, you know what it's like whenever your parents do have favorites, or if you haven't realized it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does hurt. And the actual story goes that his brothers ripped up his coat and covered it with, was it lion's blood or lamb's blood?
Lamb's blood.
Lamb's blood. And sold him to a slave trader.
And they were actually planning on to murder him.
Yeah, they weren't planning on murdering him, but they were family enough to realize, okay, we can't murder our brother.
Well, that too, and Judah actually, the oldest of them, actually convinced him, let's just not murder him and not get something out of this. Let's actually make a profit out of it. Mm-hmm. Is what a lot of it too.
They sold his brother.
Yeah, they took the money.
And then if you look in the story years later, I mean, he ended up becoming the next king. Mm-hmm. And so whenever
second in
technically
close
second
enough.
in command, but
Might
pretty
as well
close
be
enough.
king.
He was an advisor. He he interpreted the dreams, and that's how he got into the position that he was. And his brothers, their father was dying.
Came in a time of need.
They came in a time of need, and I mean, at first they didn't realize it was him. Obviously, this was decades later. He recognized them instantly. They had no clue who he was. And then whenever he finally admitted to them, hey guys, it's me, they got down on their knees and they begged for mercy. They were like, uh-oh. Now, granted, again, so much had happened to him, and yet he was able to forgive them for that.
And keep in mind, too, you guys, that we left a lot out of that story, but there's actually a good bit where he didn't just forgive them like that. He actually messed with them a lot and got them several times. He framed them for things that back in that day they would have been killed because he was caught. Yeah, he did that several times. He wasn't going to kill them, but he wanted to make them feel that way. That's
the same thing that he felt.
So it's okay if it's not an immediate thing. It's not something, and forgiveness like that is not easy, especially the person.
I wouldn't expect to forgive someone immediately, even though as Christians we are called to forgive. I mean, it takes time, and so we're like, again, what they're saying is like, if you do get to a point of reconciliation, I mean, basically take all the time you want. Now, don't take until you're lying on your deathbed.
Yeah. Or when that person's lying on their deathbed.
Yeah. I mean...
Because I'll actually... Yeah. Go ahead, and I actually want to tell a story like that.
Go on. It was probably going to say something what you were going to say.
No. Well, what I was going to say, and this is actually a personal story, is that my dad is actually was very abused in his household. His dad was... a super alcoholic. He was a meth dealer. He actually got was in prison for doing meth, for selling it, and my dad and him did not have a good relationship at all. In fact, this is actually a true story, that if you ever asked my dad to show you a martial arts move, it generally would involve someone grabbing the throat, because that's
what he knew.
That's what his dad would go for whenever he was drunk and in a rage. He would grab the throat and slam you against a wall. So that's what he knew to defend against. And that's kind of trickled down to what I got into martial arts about. But I only remember ever seeing him one time, and I don't even remember the sound of my granddad, not my dad. He only took us over there like 3 times, and I only remember him sitting on a desk, sitting on a chair with a cane, and he had polio too, which is surprising. And he sitting on a bench with a cane, and that's the only memory. I don't even remember what his voice sounds like. The other thing I remember is that there was one of those. What is the tree? The moss trees that have the moss.
Mm-hmm. The cypress trees?
Yeah, he had one of those in his yard, and that's all I remember about him. And I remember actually going with my dad to his funeral, to my granddad's funeral. And I just remember I don't want to say guilt, but the regret my dad could feel. Like, you could feel it pulsating whenever.
Because your dad didn't get that. In that case, it'd be closure.
Yeah, he never got the closure. He never got to reconcile. And I understand, too, that he comes from an abusive home. He never would have the full relationship of his dad that he would want. But at the same time, you could tell that he could have made it better. He could have done something. He could have had at least something better than what he had. And you could tell that whenever I see him and that conversation comes up, you could tell that haunts him a little bit. And that's why, for one, I think that's why the Bible says to make it peace with all people as possible to you, because you can live with yourself that way. If that person were to die, you have that that peace with you, because you can hate someone all day long, but the reason you hate them is because they hurt you. It's for no other reason other than I think a lot of it too is our anger towards someone is our secret longing for them, and they're just not giving us what we wanted or what we felt we needed. But if you hold on to that anger and it turns into resentment, and you hold on to that and you never let it go, and you never try to make peace. Now, if you try to make peace and you can't, and you did all you could, most people have a peace with that, but I've seen it where people don't have a peace whenever they knew they could have done something and they didn't do it. So this is why I say that, is because I don't want any of you who see this or who feel like, I can never forgive someone if they did this to me, or I can't move on from this, or I couldn't forgive this person. The reason why I say this is because if that's you, I don't want you to spend the next 20 years
wondering what could have been.
Wondering what could have been afterwards, after the fact. Especially when you knew you had some control over it. Generally, when people have no control over it, generally they're at peace with that. But when they see that
they have some control in it, you should try to strive for it.
Then that's when you start getting that haunted feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my tangent.
Yeah. And like an example of it actually working, and we gotta wrap up soon because we actually stayed an hour later here than what we were supposed to.
I really have to pee.
Okay, I'm editing that out of the video. If you want to see it being done in a true story, it is along the Christian standpoint, but I can only imagine. Yep. That is the best example that I could give of a way of family reconciliation. And in a way, it can relate to friendship too. So.
Now keep in mind, I actually want to go back to that because he almost had the opportunity to just walk away, let the resentment get to him, and never make that connection again.
Hey, don't spoil the movie.
My bad. Go watch it.
Go watch the movie if you want to
then
know
come
what we're
back-
talking about.
then
And
come back to this last part.
Come back. And like I said, we do have an email, so definitely if you see this and you take the time to watch the movie, send us what you think about it. And if you want, even send us your story.
And I'll give you another one too, and it's not as squeaky clean as I Can Only Imagine, but it's actually Warrior. That's another movie that I can personally relate to. I know a lot of people who probably could. Especially, there's a character, his name is Tommy Reardon, and I'll go ahead and tell you who his name is, because I don't think that's a spoiler.
No, I don't think
His-
it's
His issue is very real. It's a very real one. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And that is a story about reconciliation. It's not pretty, it's not easy, but it is possible. And I believe your life would be so enriched so much more if you allowed it to happen.
I think that is all the time we have. So this has been our introductory episode to Truth Be Told, and we'll see you guys next time. Yeah, I'm not gonna do a Fortnite dance. I was thinking, it's like, what's a good way to end the video? It's like, just
You
start-
may not.
There you go. There's me kicking them out of the shot. Bye, guys, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace out.